Welcome to More Than Legal, the show where we go behind the scenes to uncover the fine print of power, purpose, and profit. I'm your host, attorney Danielle Laughlin. After almost 2 decades in the trenches of courtrooms and boardrooms, I have learned that every move leaves a mark and every deal tells a story. What will we uncover today? Let's find out. Hey, real quick, before we dive into the episode, remember, nothing you hear on this podcast is intended to be legal, financial, or tax advice. I invite you to contact any of the guests you hear by looking in the show notes for their contact information, or if you'd like to reach out to me, you can find my contact information at daniellelaughlin.com. All right, now let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to More Than Legal. I'm here with Sarah Tamilarasan, who is a new and great friend of mine. I met Sarah at South by Southwest this year, and because she won a pitch competition. That was essentially how we met through the Liberty Ventures and Principal Business Network. And we became insta besties is really what I would say. Sarah is an incredible entrepreneur and woman, I have to say. I'm always about the strong female power in business. So she's going to bring a lot of really great value to you guys today. She is a startup founder, a co-founder, in fact, with her co-founder, Robert. And they have a business called Sotaog. And that is the best way I'm going to describe it, because I am not a scientist or a technologist, is an efficiency tool that allows energy companies to find hidden sources of cash flow to immediately improve their bottom line. And it's a technology platform and AI-based model. So that's basically what I've got. She's a smart lady. She's going to definitely tell you a lot more clearly what they do. But Sarah, I want to thank you for taking time today. You're out in Houston. All of our Texas friends, she's in Houston. If you are there too, you can connect with her. And if you want to tell everybody just about yourself, your business, kind of how you got to where you are.
No, absolutely. Would love to do that. Hey, Danielle, thanks again for having me on the show. And trust me, the highlights of being at Necker Island and South by Southwest was actually getting to meet you. You are awesome and love everything you're doing. So a little bit about me. I have a co-founder, Robert, and myself. We both come from the energy space, and we started this company based on an idea because there's a lot of, and we're in operations in the industrial world. We're not necessarily in the consumer space. So, in operations, companies are always making money every single day. What you don't know is they don't make the same amount of money every single day. So, and there's all these constraints and all these different moving parts. So how do you make the best decision and connect that to cash flow is what we help our clients do. So we traditionally work with chief operating officers in the space. And yeah, we're really excited about, it was humble beginnings, a lot of work, lots of great stories. But hey, today we manage 20% of the gas for a country. We are doing business with the U.S. Department of Energy. We have multi-billion-dollar clients here in Texas. And Texas is obviously such a huge part and very personal to me because that's where we started. And, these clients gave us our first shots and they truly helped us build what the company is today. So, yeah.
Great. Energy is so important, right? This has always been a big topic. And I think it's, especially now, we've got the Middle East, the war in the Middle East. We've got the Venezuelan situation, we'll call it, that kind of happened at the beginning of this year. And energy drives so much of our political decisions because it's how everything else gets done. It's kind of the beginning of the economy in many, many ways. Tell us, how do you see that? And what made you go into energy just as a professional? You obviously are very talented and smart. You could have gone into any industry and flourished. What was special about the energy industry for you?
Well, I was graduating college and they gave me the best offer at that time. It's simple as that. I had an offer from automotives because, I finished up school in Michigan and my internships were there. But yeah, Marathon at that time beat their offer by 20,000 and I had 11,000 in student loans. So that was that.
Yeah. I love it. And I don't know, I think I've told you this, but my husband's from Michigan.
Oh, yes.
Did I told you that?
Yeah. And remind me again, Detroit or in that area?
Ann Arbor. And he
Ann
went
Arbor.
to
That's
Michigan.
like that. University of Michigan.
Yeah. He's a software engineer. So another, science and math, not my strength.
Yeah, I do plan on wanting to meet him and have a conversation. So
absolutely. Oh, it's happening, honey. Don't worry. We're going to be in Texas a lot.
Awesome.
So tell us, like, you have a co-founder, Robert, and
right.
And how did you guys meet? I think you were working together.
He was the vice president at Marathon Oil at that time, and we had met because I was on our highest profile project at that time. As one of the engineers on there, and we had more access to the C-suite because our commissioning was going to drive a ton of cash flow, so we had more attention per se. Mm-hmm. So I met him there, but we both went our different ways. He actually went on to be the CEO of a smaller company out of London. Actually, it was listed on the AIM listed company. I went on to be I got kind of like a promotion and I got more responsibility. I went to a small company that was operating, that had assets in San Antonio, Texas. They were based in Houston, but they were small. So I went from like a company that had 30,000 people to like 150 people. And it was a lot of fun, actually. And I got to build their technology stack from the ground up. And they were losing, I had presumed that because they didn't have precision on how they sold the product. Because, I do a lot of real-time data. Was what I was doing at Marathon. But these folks were not doing that. It was not part of their operations. They were doing a lot of it manually. So I remember telling this chief operating officer, now here in this 150 person company, we meet the COO once a week. It's a mandatory. So it wasn't like this big, like meeting Robert was different at Marathon Oil. Right. Because there's 30,000 people and they are celebrities.
Right.
And, no, but at the small company, we meet this guy once a week. So I remember walking into his office and saying, hey, I think you might be losing 3% just because of how you're doing stuff. And, maybe that's something you can learn how the big guys do, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And he said, I doubt it. He said, but you know what? I'm not open. I mean, I'm open enough to test it, right? And when we tested it, we were losing 7%, not 3%.
Wow.
And we didn't even have to make more product. That's the whole thing. The efficiency was just on selling it with precision and having a trail around it. So that was actually my first, I loved it. Like, I felt like my whole ambitious spirit, came to life because in a big company, I was more of a soldier. Like, we didn't really get to showcase ideas. And even if we had ideas, they wouldn't be adopted. So that was so much fun for me. They grew the company 3 times. And because of the tech stack we were able to build out, we only added like a fraction of people. We added maybe like 3 people. And that felt so accomplishing for me. Anyways, long story short, that eventually helped me. There was a lot more smaller companies in the United States. And this is a metric that I learned later. Everyone assumes that, the United States makes 10 million barrels of oil a day. It's a common assumption that Exxon, Chevron, Marathon Oil, etc., or, some of the big guys, they produce most of it. It's not true. They produce 35% of it. And there's over 5,000 producers in the United States that contribute to the rest of it, 65%. So anyways, so I was like, I want to do this again. automation at scale for all these smaller companies and help them find more money just using data. So
100%. Well, first of all, that misconception, I didn't know that specifically about the oil industry. But I did know that generally about GDP, right? Because the assumption is that the big guys of every industry are the ones that are doing the most.
Yes.
And they're not. I think it's something like 89% of GDP, the non-federal government, the federal government's the largest employer in the United States, actually. Not many people know that.
Yeah. So I'm learning something new too.
Yeah. And so that's pretty shocking, right? We wonder where tax dollars go. And so that aside, the rest of the pool of GDP, and I may not be exactly right because I haven't looked at the statistic recently, but it is somewhere near to 90%. So it does not shock me to learn that about the oil industry, but I think one of the misconceptions about oil is that, it's a very capital intensive situation. And so you do end up with this idea that who has all this land and machinery, right, to actually effectuate these large companies. And I don't know if I've told you this, but my dad and my brother are actually in the oil industry. They're often in Houston. But what they do, and again, I don't always describe things exactly the right way, especially because I'm not an expert in the oil industry, but they do safety at the rigs and water safety and people safety and making sure that everybody is complying with regulations and staying safe out there. Is a very, very dangerous job.
They are.
And so that's even an efficiency point too, is the safety aspect of it, right?
Absolutely.
Because if somebody gets injured, God forbid, I mean, that's terrible for the injured party and their family and their whole future. It's also devastating to the company, to the other employees. And so I feel like there's a lot of synergies there with what you're talking about from operations, because we create the efficiencies in the business, but the business is all about the people. And so I'd like to kind of dig in a little bit, because one of the ways that we met each other is in this network of people that want to do business for good. Right?
Exactly.
And you've got a tough job to try to convince people in today's world that energy companies, oil companies, maybe natural gas or electric, whatever power, are good. How is that good for people, Sarah? We really need to learn a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, your power, right? They're generated from several different sources. And, it's solar, wind, oil and gas is a big thing. And actually, not many people know it, but the gas pipelines, they actually power up the grid. And they are the most reliable source even today, right? I'm doing a series with Next to Era. And the gentleman I present with is the vice president of ERCOT, right? And when that grid gets at max capacity, it's where you're sourcing your energy to power those plants up. Oil and gas is a big part of it. And what a lot of folks don't know, and I don't think the oil and gas does very well in marketing this, is right now we have a contract with one of the largest water managements in the Permian region. So anytime an oil well gets commissioned, right, there's a lot of water that comes with it. You have water, oil, and gas all come together, and then they get separated out. Now, water is considered a waste because, they have to spend 50 cents. Yeah, nobody wants it, and they're throwing it away, right? But now, oil and gas companies are trying to recycle it for their communities, because the very area that they're disposing, so a normal oil well over a year, or normal company, over a year will produce 7 million barrels of water per year, right? And you're just throwing it away. All the while, that community there's a scarcity of water in that community. And the whole thing is like Chevron has actually demonstrated this in Kern County. They have recycled their water and they just said, give it away for free. Because see, here's the incentive. It costs them 50 cents a barrel to just throw it away. If you can recycle it for 25 cents a barrel, and 45,000 acres of crops today in Kern County, over 10 years, they've been doing this for a long time. They're producing fruit. They're producing, it's farming. And then they send it down this man-made river where anyone from the community can take it. So horse farmers take water from there. So it's not that it cannot be done. It absolutely can be done. And now with our tech, we signed up the largest water produced managers in Midland County. And we're going to help them recycle the water, and it's going to go to a wildlife conservation in Texas. And I'm so excited to be a part of it because these are the stories I think no one really knows. But imagine if every producer in Texas does it, right? You're going to have farming, you're going to have cattle ranching, you're going to be spinning out new businesses. The communities will start thriving because they're looking for water.
100%.
So I love that. That's like the good part.
It is the good part. And I think too, like you said, we're not doing a great job of marketing some of these things. It's kind of part of and I think we're getting in touch with you about this, but we're having a summit here in Atlanta in September. So you'll be getting some details about that. We definitely want you to come. But we're calling it Capital and Culture, and we're going to do it every year. But the idea is business and capital has done a really poor job of showcasing the benefit to humanity that business actually provides. The media will take all of the negative externalities and showcase that to show how bad business is.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that is such a small, I'm not saying it's irrelevant because it's important. Oil spills are problematic and they devastate the environment. And there's negative externalities for having oil industry. But there's also a lot of really great stuff. Like, I didn't know that Chevron was doing this with this man-made river and like just providing free water to farmers. I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So I love that you share that. And I also think the culture side of it, that's really that media component. They need great stories, which is one of the reasons we do these interviews, because I talk to people like you that are just like great visionaries. You see a problem, but you don't attach blame. You're not saying, look at you, terrible managers of oil businesses. How dare you? You're wasting so much water and you're just causing all these problems. You say, hey, I see this problem. And then on the other side of every problem is an opportunity. Right. And you're an opportunity-focused person.
Right.
Tell us about other, because that's just one example, but you've got a few, and maybe it's happening now in your company. Maybe it's happened in the past. But have you ever had a situation where, similar to that conversation you just shared about, I doubt it. I doubt we're losing 3%. In fact, it was more than twice that. But like anything where your ethics were challenged and you were able to kind of overcome that and show people actually there's a better way to do it that's financially beneficial, but also is good for humanity, because the water example is a great one.
No, absolutely, right? Like, I mean, I get challenged on my opinions, and a lot of times when people see me, they have a perception, right, based on how they grew up, etc. And I've got to overcome that, especially being in Texas. But I don't. I think a formula that I have, and I was actually telling my team this morning, is the one muscle we always build in this company, and that I have personally built, because, we're such a small company, everyone's got to reflect the growth. And we're trying to grow exponentially here in the next 2 years. So, we all have to have certain attributes. So one big thing is integrity. But the second thing is you never give up, right? So, there's some clients, obviously, like, they'll take shots at me. Sometimes we'll feel personal. And it's about how do you respond to that, right? And there's few basic rules that over the years I've come up with because, early days, I would get personally hurt. And I would be like, how dare they? They don't really know me. All of that might be true. But we really don't know where that person's coming from either or what shaped them. And yes, they can be really cruel, really abrasive. But the best part is I always tell them, I don't have to see him tomorrow. I just have to stay in this one conversation. And I don't have to, I can only control myself, right? I don't have to come across and jab at you. And I remember this early days when I had this horrible customer, right? The management had approved the contract, but the guy I had to work with, he was just a jerk, right? And I think he was specifically a jerk to me, right? Because, not a lot of women in this space. And he, I don't know, he just disliked me, right? And I remember, so anytime he calls, right, it's never a good thing. He just makes a problem out of nothing, right? And I remember this one time, and I regret it, actually. I regret my, how I responded, right? I remember I was trying to close a few more contracts, and he just called at the wrong time, right? And I knew it before I picked up. He's going to say something negative. He's going to take a shot at me. He's going to make me feel small, right? Because that's what he does every time. So he said something, and I said, you know what? I think I'm kind of tired of this. I said, you know what? How about just I turn off my solution on your assets now? Is that what you want? And he was just like dead silent, right? He was like, no, Sarah, and I was like, yeah, how about we just figure out? But looking back, I didn't have to sink to his level and say, and do that. And I remember the next thing he did, he called Robert, and then Robert called me. He was like, what happened? I was like, I don't know. How about this guy never calls me again, right? But that's not true. I can't do that, right? As a leader, I just have to be better. So fast forward, those things happen a lot. But now I take the focus off what they're saying and try to look at the person and try to redirect, try to really understand where the heart of it is coming from. Maybe he was just having a bad day in his operations. Maybe all his oil wells were just offline for other reasons, and he was taking it out on me. But we can always, the only thing we have control over is how we respond. And that takes growth. I'm not perfect. I look back on those days, and I still think about a few interactions where I can always be a little bit better, because people still take shots at me today. That has not gone away.
I love that, because as women too, I think and I don't get into a bunch of the social conditioning, we all choose.
Right.
We all choose. But there is at least an expectation, especially in the South, in the Southern US, and Texas is not much different than Georgia, I have to say, where women are perceived to be nice, especially when you're of mature age as mothers too, right? You're going to be the easy one. You're going to be the soft one. You're going to be the one that helps make my day better or gives me what I need to feel satisfied that I got what I needed. That is something I see a lot as well. And so I think as a woman, it's important to be able to take it and also not flip it, but use it for an opportunity to teach, yes. Right? I say this a lot with my kids. This just happened with my youngest son this morning. We were getting ready, and he's sitting there on his iPad eating, and then he comes, we got to go because I got to go to the splash pad, and he's just telling me, and I said, well, I have to get ready too. and I had to get your breakfast and your water and pack your backpack and do all these things. And so if you would do that for yourself, I could probably be ready on time with you and we could leave at the same time.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, I'm a bad boy."
Aww.
Bad boy.
Aww.
And when you say looking at the person, I think about my sons. You're a mother of 2 boys too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I think about my sons, and they can be hurt, even grown men and just women too, right? We get hurt too by men, and what you're talking about is being hurt by a man, right? Like you're emotionally impacted by the opposite sex. I think it's so encouraging when I meet another woman like you in a very male-dominated industry who maintains your femininity. You don't try to
and I don't
play.
think we have to be men. I don't necessarily think we have to be loud and abrasive. And there are good qualities that men bring that, and there's good reason for that, because you definitely want men to be strong. You definitely want them to go to war and be abrasive, right? You don't want them to be soft, right? So I mean, and it's wrong to confuse those attributes as weaknesses, and it's so important to lean in on our strengths, because trust me, I go into a lot of meetings and it's amazing to actually be a woman, and you can, how do I say it? Like, I've been able to take tension out of meetings and move deals forward.
Correct.
Because the men are just going at it with their attitudes and all of that. And then I'm able to diffuse the situation. And that's the power of a woman. A man can do it, or at least in those meetings they couldn't until I showed up, but, and it's great because everyone leaves their meeting in such a great mood. Everyone won. Like, every guy in that meeting felt like they won.
Yes.
Because the deal got done. And that's how a deal is anyways, where 2 parties win, right? Like, even with my customers, I solve a problem for them, they pay me. I win because I get paid. They win because their problem went away. It's great. That's essentially how I think a deal should, those are, in simple terms, those are what the covenant of a deal should be.
100%. And I do think too, because, it's more energy too, right? It's not necessarily like a man versus a woman. It's like some men have more like feminine energy, whereas some women have more masculine energy. I've always had a masculine energy, even though I'm a very feminine woman, but that's the left brain, right? The left brain winning, doing the thing, and we share that. I think it's one of the reasons we kind of became besties, is like, we are very kind of left brain, but also we don't shy away from the feminine side. And I think you're exactly right. Like, collaboration and win-win solutions are not inherent only to females, but they are inherent only to feminine energy, which is where some of the woo-woo comes in, and people are like, "Oh, I don't believe in that." And I'm like, believe in it or not, I'm in a lot of deals. You're in a lot of deals. Exactly. You're in high stakes. I'm in high stakes. And we can say, regardless of whether you believe it or not, that is true and that is real. And there's real examples of it happening. What do you want to share? Because we've talked a little bit about your startup, but I want to hear, let's see, how long has it been since you started? It's been a year?
It's been a couple of years. Our product came to the market with our anchor client about a couple of years ago. Yes.
Okay, a couple of years. So in the startup world, there's a perception, like you start and then you just
go. Yeah.
Right.
We were bootstrapped. So, I loved part of that. And this whole, I loved being bootstrapped because I felt like I had more control. And the only person I had to deal with is Robert, right? My co-founder. And he's awesome. Without him, we wouldn't be a company today. So I appreciate him. And he is like the best co-founder I could have asked for. And you know what I realize now that we're growing and we're getting investors, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I was starting to raise money, and you know, stats are everywhere. Only 1% will raise, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a full-time job. Raising is a full-time job. And I'm going in thinking, you know what? My backup, like, it's not that I didn't want to raise. I was intimidated by raising before I even started, right?
Sure.
Before we even start, you're like, this feels too hard. Maybe I'd run away. But then I knew that my team, I have a very young team in terms of age. And I know they want to grow. They're ambitious. They want the company to grow 10 times, right? And they're working really hard. So if not for me, I have to do it for them. And I know for my co-founder as well, Robert, like, you know, he is looking for an exit too. So all this responsibility. And if there's one thing I do well that I learned from a young age, because, you know, I grew up poor, I had 3 jobs in college, I had a little bit of student loans, etc. I'll always show up with my 120% for the opportunity, even if I don't feel like it. And that's a trick. You don't have to feel like it. You can still put in the work and show up, right? So I did that. And of course, I heard no's. But I think the hardest part for me was later I realized with customers, the product wins, right? Like, I deliver a great solution, it wins. With investors, they were putting money in based on, can I deliver?
Right.
They heard the metrics, they heard the traction. And early days, I was hiding behind that because that's easy, right? It's easy to put some numbers on and say, oh, here's how great my team is. Look at what we've done. But they were like, yeah, we don't really care about that. And then you start to overperform. And, you know, wires are hitting our accounts now, right? Like real money is getting wired into the accounts.
Right.
And I thought this would be relief, but instead it's like so much responsibility, right? And I remember the first investor, I was telling her, hey, you know, I'm going to work really hard. Your money isn't going to, like, you know. And she looked at me and she said, hey, you don't have to convince me of that. She said, I already know. I was like, wow, okay. And then the second was actually, it was a couple. And I had heard that the husband was in, but she had some reservations. And she's a lawyer. And anyways, so she came down to meet me for lunch or something. And I was like, oh man, I've got to put on this show all over again. And I remember saying, you know, I will, if anything, I'm going to try my hardest to get this return. And it's a range. And it's easy to see the lower end of that return for them. But the higher end, I said, is what I'm going to work for, because, you know, everyone's holding their investment for 7 to 8 years, right. 7 to 10. And she looked at me, and it's only been 30 minutes. And she said, I don't know why you're putting so much pressure on yourself. She's like, we're okay with the risk.
Correct.
She was like, it's okay. I was like, oh my gosh. And here's like all this mental stuff, right? Like, I had gone in thinking everyone's going to say no. 1% is going to say yes. And if they say yes, they're going to hold me to it like a, like, I don't know, like a drill sergeant from the army. They're going to be tracking every dollar. It's really not how all of this pans out. But I think what's important is, even if you don't feel like, even if everything seems so overwhelming, you just give it your best.
That's all you have.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like, that's all you have. And I think the thing that I immediately also saw in you, I think people see the truth of who you are, because you're very transparent about yourself. You're not really putting on a show, you know, like, you know what you know. You're very, very smart at that niche way of doing things. But you're honest about what you don't know. which is even more important because in the startup world, the biggest thing I see is going back to the guy who said, I doubt it. Like I see this all because as a lawyer, I'm coming in to look at their companies under the hood.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the stuff that nobody else sees, not even necessarily their full management team, maybe not their spouse.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of ego that gets wrapped into that. And people like to hide and they like to pretend that everything's perfect.
Right.
And when you find a founder that acknowledges that everything's not perfect, but that they're committed to solving the problems, that's the most honest thing that anybody could say.
Oh, you told me maybe my entire weekend.
Yeah, it's true. And you're not saying, I don't need help. You're not saying it's all me. You're saying, I've found some great people that I'm working with. I'm leading them. It's my responsibility to get the job done and make sure the job is getting done, but also to have the humility to say, hey, I'm doing my best here. And like, I will be accountable to that. And even if it doesn't actually pan out, what's not going to happen is you're not going to look back and say, where was Sarah? Sarah didn't show up. Sarah always had an excuse. Sarah, hid the ball. Sarah pretended she had the things she didn't have. And the biggest risk for a startup is all of those things. People that don't show up, they always have excuses. They're hiding the ball.
Yeah.
So I know why they invested in you. I mean, I knew it right away. And so I think it's just it just goes to who you are. And you're right. Investors care more about who you are than what your product is, because you could do any product if you put your mind to it.
That is very true. And I'm learning that. Like I learned that after, and I appreciate all the investors, right, that are taking a risk and wiring money. Like I know it's not a thing. I mean, and I appreciate that so much compared to all the other folks. And I also completely understand to the folks that said no, right? I appreciate because maybe I'm not the right fit, but the ones that I'm a great fit for, like how awesome. Like they are, like they truly trust me. Like it feels amazing to have that, to have earned so much of their trust. And they don't know me. Like they're not like my dad or my mom. They are like complete strangers that I met this year, right?
Yes, exactly.
And
well, I want to congratulate.
They have no basis to trust me that much. But I think it just, it goes to, I was watching a clip yesterday and I don't know who was interviewing him, but it was Jordan Peterson, because I'm going to be in London, not next week, but the week after. At that ARC, which is Jordan Peterson's conference that he kind of started. And so I watched this clip and it was talking about Mensa, right? And my sister asked me, like, why don't you just join? Like we could just get that on the website and all these things. And I'm like, I don't really want to put that out. Like, that's not really what I'm trying to advertise. Like, I don't, maybe that's a good thing to do from a sales and marketing perspective. I don't know. Well, this clip shows up and it was exactly that issue. And the interviewer said, I wonder about the people that join a group like a Mensa, right? This is the only big one that we know, basically putting a stamp of your IQ. It's kind of like I went to Harvard or I went to Oxford. And it's like, nothing's wrong with that. Like, that's great. And congratulations. But that's not what makes somebody a good investment. What makes them a good investment is that they are a good person. That's it. And that's the secret sauce that many founders never understand. And they spend so much time trying to raise money and get money and sell and all this. And they're always wearing a mask. Right.
And people know when you're wearing a mask.
They still get money though. They still get money, but despite doing that. But
they don't feel good, right? They're not.
I feel great. Yes.
You have a piece.
Yeah.
You have a piece.
Absolutely. Because, absolutely. And, integrity is such an important thing. And I tell my team that all the time. We essentially built, our team culture is just 3 pillars, right? It's your technical skill set, whatever we hire you for. I feel like there's always a technical skill set to that. Even if it's sales, there's a skill set. You don't just show up and wing it and say, oh, I'm going to talk to this person 3 times. So I met no, that's not how that works. Right? So skill set, technical skill set, or methodology, right? Big, hard work and integrity. I always tell people that if there's some area that I would be okay or take points off, like if your performance, because your performance is evaluated across all 3, it would always be on the skill set that I could give you a break on. Mm-hmm. And integrity, 0. Mm-hmm. And it's not like you say the first white lie, like I might have some empathy towards it, but then when it becomes a pattern, you get fired. Like you really don't, because now you created a pattern where the rest of the folks can't trust you.
Correct.
And you're putting everybody at risk at this point.
Correct.
Everyone associated with the company. And that includes my kids. And I tell them that all the time. So I tell them that bad news never sits well on the shelf. Even if I get upset. Tell me that right away. And, and I'm really proud of the culture we have today. But it's taken so much work. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's taken so many iterations because, and that was hard because even the existing team would say, ma'am, they call me ma'am. And because, they're young. So they always say, ma'am, we're so busy. Let's not fire him right now. And I'm like, yeah, but then you got this guy that's going to get worse. He's supposed to work 8 hours. He's working 6. We all know that. Mm-hmm. Let's keep tolerating this. He's going to go down to 2 before we know it.
Correct. But
anyways, and the team has had to carry that burden too. But yeah, integrity. No tolerance for lack of integrity.
I think that's so important. It takes a lot to be able to let people go, especially when you're busy. Especially if they have great technical skills and they're bringing, good, decent work to the team. But it is the mark of a true leader, to be honest, and to know that the health of the whole entire team depends on every individual's health.
Yeah, and to make unpopular decisions. I think that is the hardest part. And I think it's harder for us as women because at least for me, I don't know.
Oh, me too. Absolutely.
Because I love that person. Like, correct. I don't want to let them go. And then it hurts even more that my team kind of wants them too. And then here you're making this really unpopular decision that hurts you, that kind of hurts them. And, and I think that's where like men actually do a great job. Like they're built for this because, they have the protective spirit. Yeah. So like they inherently can make tough decisions and not feel so much. And those are all good things, actually. And a lot of times in the early days, like Robert had to do the firings and help me. And he did it so well.
Tell Robert to come do my firing for me too. Well, this has been so good, Sarah. You've given us so much. I want to say for startup founders, for women, for folks that are charting their own path, it's such a breath of fresh air to hear from someone who's intelligent, but also personable. You're just a lovely human. I'm glad that I know you. And it may not mean too much, but I want to say that I'm proud of you. You're doing some really tough stuff and you're doing a great job at it. And I've seen you in action and you're a baddie. You're a total baddie, Sarah. So thank you. Do you have any parting? Well, tell me, do you have any parting wisdom or thoughts that you want to share with our audience?
No, I think to me, it just comes down to 2 basic rules. Just have integrity. We all make mistakes, but if you look back, apologize. If an action came across that didn't have integrity, because it could always be misinterpreted. And last thing is like, just never give up.
Yeah.
You know,
100%. Well, thank you. You'll get Sarah's contact information in the show notes. I invite you to reach out to her. She's all over LinkedIn, so that's probably the best place. But is there somewhere else that you'd like for them to go to find you or Sotaog?
No, LinkedIn is the best place, or email me. Yeah.
Great.
I love meeting new people.
Awesome. So we'll put all of that in the show notes. Thank you for taking time today. It's been great to see you.
Yeah, great seeing you.
Bye for now. Thank you for listening to the show. Remember, stay sharp, stay curious, and stay tuned for our next episode. Bye for now.